Hi, I'm sitting here with Heather today, who is one of our photographers at Three Little Wishes, and it's to give you an idea of what we're all about and to introduce you to an amazing team of photographers who work with me. Heather, thank you for coming.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks for having me.
That's all right, it's a pleasure. Okay, I've got various questions to ask you, one of which obviously you're English, and I'm quite interested to know what brought you to New Zealand.
Oh, okay, so it was my girlfriend at the time, now wife.
Right.
She got the idea in her head, and I think she'd had it before we met, actually.
Right.
So it was quite a fast-paced thing of meet a lovely lady. She invites me to go to New Zealand with her, and then the next year we were here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, all I'd really known was that it's like great for wildlife and great.
Oh, so you'd actually never been here?
Never ever been.
Oh, God.
No. Yeah, and I'd also never lived away from my parents' house either, so it was a lot of steps all at once.
Yeah,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in the UK, what had you been doing there? Presumably, you'd been teaching photography, hadn't you?
Yeah. So I was teaching photography for Jessops,
right?
Who really gave me my start in photography. I was also working as a sole trader doing freelance photography.
Okay.
But I think I'd gone into that a bit quick, really. I still had a lot to learn, and it's one of those things, no matter how long you've been doing photography, I think you always look back at your previous work and go, oh no, what was I doing?
So when you started with Jessops, what you were teaching, what's the same sort of thing that you're doing with us?
Yeah, so actually when I started with Jessops, I wasn't teaching yet. That came later on. It was a couple of years down the line of printing everybody else's photos, and they have this academy program which is aiming to get people to grips with their photos so they can enjoy the camera that they spent so much money on, and they can come back and then print some of those lovely photos off.
Okay. So when you joined us, it was pretty much sort of building on that experience, because obviously you've been with us, what, a couple of years now?
I think 2 years.
Yeah. God, it's gone quickly,
It has. I really surprised myself when I started teaching.
Right.
Because I was quite a shy person, I think, probably when I started Jessops, and I couldn't have imagined that I would ever be comfortable speaking to a group of people, but then
because I think actually that's the hardest thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And especially it was more classroom based, so it was really all eyes on, and turns out I loved it.
Oh, brilliant. So I suppose you're saying with Jessops it was very much classroom based, so it wasn't the practical way of doing things that we do.
There was some practical thrown in there, but there was a lot more, like I used to go in with a slideshow, we had to have the projector running or the wheels would come off, sort of thing. And it just made sense for the UK. The weather's so changing, we'd never get anything done in the winter if we weren't indoors.
God, I hadn't even thought of that. Whereas at least we've probably got 10 months of the year where we don't have to worry too much about the weather being absolutely crap.
Exactly. I mean, days like today where it's absolutely stunning. Fine day to be outside.
No, perfect. So do you actually enjoy the teaching side now?
I love
Please
the
say
teaching
yes.
side. I think I'm probably equally as passionate about the teaching side as I am about photography. It is really important to me, and I think it is such a powerful tool, and if we all learned to be better teachers, I think the world would be a bit of a better place, probably. That's a bit soppy.
No, not at all. I think it's the way we have to think these days. So what's your passion in photography? You must have something that is really you, landscape or portraits or whatever.
I would have said portraits a couple of years ago, but I think since coming to New Zealand, I can't turn away from the wildlife. I've become a bit of a bird nerd, my wife would say. And in fact, I brought my big lens because when I looked at where I was coming on Google Maps, I couldn't help but notice there's a big green patch on the map. Oh, that's a reserve.
Oh, so you've been out this morning actually taking photos of birds.
I was going to go out after.
Oh, okay.
But I really love capturing, especially the bird wildlife here in New Zealand. It's so much more diverse than in the UK.
Oh, God,
where it's just 10 different types of black birds, you know, from this big to that big.
Whereas you've got all the amazing coloured ones here. Yeah.
Terrific, like pukekos all over the place, fantastic colours on them. Just so easy to photograph.
But you've also got a passion for dogs.
Yes.
What is it? No. What do you look for?
Winstons.
Winstons.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. That's the top secret.
Is it?
Can't
Okay.
include that. It's coming soon.
Oh right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I've got to find some more Winstons. They're
Okay.
a bit more elusive than I first thought, I think.
But do they actually have to be called Winston then?
Maybe. We'll see. It's a little seedling idea. We'll see where it grows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just been bothering people down the dog park. Like, hi, your dog's pretty. Can I take a picture?
Tell us, if I was somebody looking at this, what would I need to get into wildlife photography of birds? What sort of lens, for instance?
Okay, so I mean, if we're looking at it from a budget point of view, as long a lens as you can get, so a lens that will zoom out and magnify the birds, because they don't often love it if we get too close. Yeah, they don't have a lot of patience for that a lot of the time, unless you're somewhere like the zoo, which is a fantastic place to start off and start observing the behaviours of animals and how they react to seeing you. I think the most important thing to have is probably patience for those incidences where, you know, you're sort of trying to creep up, maybe you're just trying to pop your camera out of a window and it takes off. You've got to sort of have the resilience to come back from that and try again, or sit out in the cold and wait for the right moment. Yeah, sometimes that's the best sort of things. The dreary days, I find there's few people around, the animals are getting busy looking for, well, they still have to go about their daily business. They've got to find some dinner. They might have to find some nesting materials. So even if it's raining, the animals are still out there and they're still busy.
Going back to sort of Three Little Wishes, obviously the workshops attract people with all sorts of different camera makes and models. Does this prove a problem? You know, with somebody coming in with, I don't know, an Olympus perhaps that you haven't seen before, or a Nikon, or do you think pretty much most of the cameras are fairly similar with their menus?
I think a lot of them, especially the more modern the camera is, the more simple the menus are. I think that, camera companies have sort of cottoned on that we're all looking for the same sort of keywords when we're flicking through that menu. So I don't think the type of camera makes a difference to me as a tutor at all. And it all comes down to preference. I think every single camera out there has its strengths. There's no one perfect camera for everything. Hence why I've used heaps of different cameras, heaps and heaps, and that's partly from working in camera shops, but I think even if I hadn't, I would have wanted to go out and try something a little bit different. You know, if I could have borrowed it from a friend, would have gone ahead and done it. But I think the only ones that I know to look out for these days, it's I look for silent shutter in that menu straight away, and the auto ISO on the Nikon cameras. But no issues.
Well, that's good. And with regards to lenses and things, do you find that a lot of the students, when they're coming in, want advice on what lenses to get, because perhaps it's sort of an area which they're a bit flummoxed over?
Yeah, it can be quite technical, and we do try and cover that in beginners, of how to understand what your lens is telling you with all the random numbers that will sometimes be around the front of the lens. So we try and decode it a bit, demystify it, and let you know what's going to be a suitable lens for what you want to achieve.
What do you reckon is the most asked question? Would it be around the lack of understanding over apertures and the very strange f-stops that we have to get our head around?
Yes, I think probably the most asked for is, how do you remember apertures, that whole big number small hole? Really, it's a big hurdle for a lot of beginners. And I like to try and relate it back to depth of field, a big number for a deeper depth of field and a small number for a smaller depth of field. I think that gives you A, more creative control, and B, stops it feeling like this big block, scary thing that you've got to remember or you're going to mess up your photo.
Yeah, because I think it is a big block, scary thing, isn't it? I know when I first started, I kept looking at the f-stops and thinking, oh God, I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. And why is there an F there anyway?
Well,
Like,
yeah,
nobody
that's
knows.
it. No. So over the years, has there been any sort of real standout experiences that you remember, particularly with a student?
Yeah, there's definitely been a few. There, as we sort of feedback on people's photographs, there have been times where I've looked at the back of what's on someone's camera and I'm just thinking, okay, cool, you've absolutely nailed this, don't have to worry about you whatsoever. Some people, really take to it like a duck to water, and there is one young lady in particular who's a real standout for that, where she came in with just such a great eye for composition, and also did very well. I think she'd come on with her mum, so as they were pairing off to model for each other, she was really nailing both sides of the camera, and it was almost a little bit unfair. I think it's rude not to leave a little bit of talent for the rest of us.
I love it.
Yeah, to share it around a little bit. But yeah, as I've heard, she's doing really well and
Brilliant.
done some shoots of her own, and so.
Oh, I believe actually she's done a couple of weddings.
Oh, which is
Mm.
it's really hard work.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh,
I'm
that's
hoping
good.
she learnt a little bit from us, and the rest is just it's all her.
Brilliant. What advice would you give to somebody who's starting out in photography?
Oh, this was the question I was probably least prepared for.
Right.
Because I think there's so many different bits of advice, and kind of similar to how there's so many like different cameras and different lenses. It really depends what you want to do with that photography.
I suppose it also depends on budget as well, really, doesn't it?
Oh,
How
tremendously,
much you got to spend.
yeah. And I think the only bit of universal advice I could give is to go out and practice. Really dig in, find one of the photography challenges that are online. I know there's so many these days. There's apps you can get which will give you like a different prompt for each week.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and if you post them online, it helps to keep you accountable, because people follow your page and they'll miss you if you drop a week. So yeah, I think it's
That's a good idea, actually. Very good idea.
very important to get out and practice. We should make our own photography
We should, shouldn't we?
challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, this was just a brief cover off. So thank you.
Thank you.
And hopefully it gives people a bit of idea about us and what we do and who we are. Thank you.
Thank you.